This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to Main Street. Gary Allen with you. We've got a full show today. We're going to talk about the NBA draft, the NFL draft, and the NBA playoffs. I got draft and stuff on my mind. Hope all of you have been well since the last time we saw you. So without further ado, let me bring on the people who are going to talk about this, the most two dear friends of mine who you know on this program quite a bit, Mr. Dave LaMont and Mr. Jeff Deforrest.
Great to be with you, Mr. Gary. That might be the best theme music. Is that what, Commodores?
No, I don't know. I picked it up off.
Destin, to record that for you because it's excellent.
It's the best kind of music, guys. Free.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dave has that down. Dave has
no
that
imminent
down.
lawsuits pending against the show because you'd hate to be like involved in litigation before we even.
No. It's somebody's music that I picked up on YouTube, and as long as you don't play any more than 45 seconds of something.
I noticed you cut out at 44.9.
Yeah, I think it's less than that. It's funny. When I'm announcing it at Dania High Live, we only play free generic music because we have a live YouTube feed that runs the length of the program. So if we played licensed music and it gets out over YouTube, even if it's in the background, that's the end of business right there. So we have to play non-licensed, generic sounding music from people you've never heard of before, because otherwise we'd be.
Refresh me now. What is the theme when the guys come out there and they salute with the cestas?
I don't know the names of the marches. Those we have. No, yeah. I don't know the name of them. They're just called the marches. I mean, I suppose I could, if I really wanted to, I could.
You had to have heard this how many times, Dave LaMont?
Oh, in the tens of thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Can you
I actually like it.
Give us a little of it.
The year we came back post-COVID, the first year, they didn't march. It was my first year back, the 2021, I guess. The players didn't want to march because of COVID. And I thought something, that was the excuse.
Did they wear masks when they played?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Because I used to think some of these guys should have worn a ski mask back in the days of Miami Highlight because of the way that they were robbing the public. But no, it was all on their level. We know that.
And I complained about it to the player manager, Benny, my friend of mine. I said, something's missing. It's just not right. Well, the guys don't. So the next year they started, and so they march out after every game, before every game.
It's a great.
Anyway, before we a
great tradition. Would you say, Gary, were you a highlight guy? I loved highlight.
Yeah, I worked at Dania High Life for a while in the PR area before Dave came on board, and then
that's almost impossible. He's been there forever, this kid.
Well, no, I know.
It's big shift. I mean, big swing in years. I left in '89. I didn't come back till 2021. That's a big little bit
small gap there. Yeah.
And I left. I was there. Well, I was taking care of my dad, and then as soon as my dad passed away, I didn't last long at Dania because I couldn't keep up with the schedule of what it was, and then taking care of my dad and everything. So I had to leave after about 4 or 5 months. And
I like when they put in the simulcasting cellar. And that was one of the original simulcasting places where you could bet the horses, off-site.
Yeah, they've got a good little room for that, and a nice little poker room they have up there on the second floor.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, back in the day, though, it was kind of strange, and you had to put like a giant metal token in to get through the gate, that got you through the turnstile. And then I would look around the room and think, my God, this must be purgatory, and hell would be the same people in a room where you couldn't bet on the horses. But
okay.
I think
all right, gentlemen, let's get to the fruit.
Let's start the show, everybody. Let's run the music again.
Yes. The NBA started this weekend, and of course, Miami found their way to get into the playoffs again, only to lose to Cleveland yesterday. The Orlando Magic up here where I live, they played Boston. Oh, they were all excited about all that and all that crazy stuff. I could not believe, though, what was the one game out west?
It was Oklahoma City. They won by
Oklahoma City. Holy.
Over Memphis.
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I still think it's going to end up Boston and Cleveland in the East, Oklahoma City, and maybe the Wolves in the West.
I would look out for Denver, although they've had all the weirdness with firing the coach and the GM in the last 10 days of the season. But I just think Jokic is the guy. He's the best player in the league for my money. So I would give them an outside chance. I like your picks, Gary. I love Cleveland this year, especially. I think Cleveland's going to take it at least into the finals, probably against Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma City. It's a tribute to building it, taking a little bit of time, actually realizing, okay, you know what? We're not great. Let's just go ahead, eat it for a couple years, and see if we can build it the right way. And that's what they did. The Cavs, not quite the same way, but they've been able to develop. And the thing about the Cavs is, although they do have a star in Donovan Mitchell, they have so many other guys. It's like a swarm of guys who can beat you if they're all playing well. Not always the case in the playoffs, guys. I know you look for a superstar player at the end of the game to give the ball to you can go in the game, and most everybody has that. And I think Mitchell is that guy for Cleveland, but that's a real definition of a team.
Yep, I think so. And I think even though I think Boston is a more complete team, I don't know if you guys watched the Boston game yesterday with Orlando.
Yeah,
but man, as soon as Tatum fell with his wrist, it was like there was like the air was out of the stadium until he finally made a couple of shots, and then they went, okay, all right. Now they got a couple of days off to let the wrist heal a little bit. But I like Boston's chances over Cleveland only because of the way the Celtics are built. The only problem I have with Boston, Dave and Jeff, is they go 3-point happy instead of trying to take it into the paint and get 2 points on numerous tries when the 3-pointers aren't really working. That's the only thing that drives me crazy. But that's basketball now.
They will not change, by the way. That is how they play. That's how they're built. That's how they're built. That's what they do. So they're going to have those nights where they're shooting 48%, and they're going to knock somebody right out of the building. And there's even nights where they're going to shoot 35%, and they're going to have a struggle. But they seem to be completely content with that.
Yep. That's how they're built. Jeff, what's the line on these in the NBA? Who's got what going?
Well, Oklahoma City is the favorite to win it all, and as well they should be. Many people were trying to make the equation that this was some kind of message they sent. I think Memphis just had a god-awful game, and they were coming out of the play-in tournament. And Oklahoma City's a real good team. There's no question about it. Definitely a team to beat. They were the best in the league all season long in the regular season, and well-built and well-constructed, as Dave pointed out. Yeah, NBA is a chalk league. I mean, break out the milk of magnesia. You're usually going to have the favorites in the winner's circle. It does seem like, we had a little bit of an upset last year when Dallas made it into the finals. I don't think people anticipated that, but they have since. Is Nico Harrison? I heard he made a public appearance yesterday at an exit.
Did you see what he said? I had to look this up to see if this was like a fake internet quote, but he said something along the lines of, I knew that Luka was very popular. I just didn't realize how popular. And I thought, I guess that's a confession, but man, I'm not sure I would have said that out loud for the fact that people just despise him. I would have to think his time in an organization is done. They somehow managed to get into a play-in game, and they won it, but they were never going to get very far after that. And of course, seeing Anthony Davis hobble off near the end of the game again. Just had to be the dagger in his heart.
There was a lot to that story, though, and I tend to believe, and I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy in general in sports, but there's a casino issue that has taken place in Dallas, Texas, and the Mavericks owners. It was a big casino interest. The guy checked out, the husband, but the wife is still involved with major Vegas casinos, and this was on their minds. They didn't want to spend $350 million on a ball player that they thought was going to eat himself like Oliver Miller. May he rest in peace.
But that's not. But that part of it, Jeff, is bull crap. The other half of it is I believe it. But the idea that that's what they were worried about, nonsense.
Right, but
that's nonsense.
In the referendum.
Yeah, that was their handy excuse.
Right.
Because he's not ripped. And veins bulging and all this other stuff. Just watch him play. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to not see the talent and the ability? And so that was their fake excuse. And it's just the casino thing.
I believe they made a trade to enhance their position in terms of the casino issue. I really do.
They're never. I don't know if they're ever going to get one in Texas.
They might. Whatever. I mean, obviously,
Well,
it's worth a lot of money.
if there's Native American land there and they can talk to one of the tribes, they can work something out. I bet.
When I saw the new owner, and her name escapes me, but
It's
when
some
I saw
Sheldon or
her wearing
something
an
like that.
Indian headdress like she was Danny Little Red Lopez, entering the ring for a featherweight championship fight back in the day, I thought, well, maybe there is something there to Native American Association. But that's the story. I mean, and it makes more sense to me than any of the justifications, like you said, Dave. Where, I mean, you're not getting rid of this player who's worth $1 zillion to you at the box office and in merchandising around the world. Because he's overweight, and he's certainly
Right.
effectively enough. Is he going to be a defensive stalwart at any point in time? No. But do you want him on your team? Absolutely.
Yeah,
And he's young
it's the
enough.
Adelsons. It's Miriam Adelson and her daughter and son-in-law are the other owners.
Casinos.
And Cuban still has a piece of the team, but not and
he's a minor voice at this point, if any.
And he told him, and they told him, don't trade him. Do not trade him. Cuban told him, but they didn't listen to him.
I'm interested in this series, though. Knicks and the Pistons. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the Pistons home yesterday because I love the Pistons story. They did very little in the offseason other than get a new coach, J.B. Bickerstaff. I thought Bickerstaff should have easily been the coach of the year. Kenny Atkinson, what he did with Cleveland, great. You could make the case that Bickerstaff was at Cleveland the year before, and Atkinson won 20 more games with essentially the same guys. But Detroit went from a 14-win team to a 42-win team. They won 3 times as many games without really making any significant personnel changes. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden they dug up, in shape and in his prime Larry Bird and inserted him into the roster. So I thought that was pretty remarkable. But my favorite thing about the series, I don't know, were you a Knicks fan at any time? No, you were anti-Knicks, right, Dave?
No, actually, I'll really date myself. When I was a kid, I would get Knicks games on the radio at night, living in Northern Virginia. So actually, as a kid, I was very fond of those Knicks championship teams because those were players I liked, and I would make my dad take me to see them play the Bullets in Baltimore or at College Park. It would play at the University of Maryland every once in a while, and we would go. So I was rooting for the Knicks. But that once we moved down here, we didn't have a team at the time in this area, and it just sort of faded. And I just didn't really have a team for the longest time. So,
boy, but what a historic franchise they are.
I love watching
the Pistons. You're right. Yeah,
Tom Thibodeau. I've never seen a guy. Now, Jeff Van Gundy, he reminded me, guys, you would be familiar with this for sure, Gary, with your affiliations in Hollywood. I'm sure Dave's seen this guy, Vincent Schiavelli, the character, and he was in Night Shift. He was the guy that sandwiched the liver. Michael Keaton said, "Hey, I don't want any mustard on that sandwich," and he wiped it on the wall. The guy's been in a lot of movies. Old School, I think he was in. He was in a bunch of different stuff. And Van Gundy looked just like him, didn't he? I mean, but I have never seen a guy look like. And my mother used to do this. It was unpopular every now and then. You'd be using some foul language. It would slip out around the house. And my mother would say, "Yeah, you say that again, I'm going to wash your mouth out with cod liver oil." You're gonna, and I don't know. Did you ever taste this stuff? Either of you guys?
Yes.
No, I had loving parents, Jeff.
It was a draconian punishment back in the day. My parents were very loving, but this guy Thibodeau looks like he has been literally gargling with this. Can you look any more sour and depressed and catatonic during a game than this guy does?
It's not that. It's just that I don't know him. I've asked around a little bit about him. I just think he's one of those 23-hour-a-day guys. He's one of those guys that thinks if you're not thinking about basketball, you're failing as a human being. You're failing. And, he has the reputation of wearing down his teams because he works them hard. He doesn't like to substitute. Once he establishes his guys, those are his guys. He does win. He obviously has some sound theories. Otherwise, he wouldn't keep getting rehired. My thing is he just looks like he hasn't slept in 6 months.
Exactly.
And that was the Jeff Van Gundy thing, too. If you're going back to the days when he took over, when Riley left and came here, Jeff Van Gundy would have the bags under his eyes down to here. And the guy with all the money, he got a pay bump. He was still driving like a Honda Accord.
Do you see the Schiavelli reference at all? Or
a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he was taller, but it's just – there are guys like that. There are football coaches like that who feel like I don't have to see my family or do anything but watch tape fall asleep for an hour, get up, watch more tape, then coach, and then practice. That's for all we know, he could be the happiest guy in the world because he's doing what he wants to do. I think there'll come a time when that'll change in his life. But right now, look, he's got this team already up a game. Detroit, I think, Jeff, the guy who's really turned it, who we saw some talent from last year is Cade Cunningham.
Yes.
And that's
a very
probably the
suspect number
biggest
one overall
reason.
pick at one time.
Probably the biggest reason they made that jump, along with other things. But he's clearly the key guy there. So I'm
do see. It's the old knocking on the door theory, though, in the NBA. I think it's really applicable and readily evident over the years, where a team knocks on the door and then maybe they get over the hump in the future. We saw it with the Pistons back in the day, the bad boy Pistons. They had to knock on the door for a while, and we saw this inexperience really. Come to the forefront and into focus in most of the early playoff games, where a team like Detroit, they're in a not commanding position, but they're in a very strong position, up 10 in the fourth quarter. About 7 minutes to go in a ball game, and they're on the road, and they win this one. Now you're in a really good position, but all of a sudden they give up a 21-0 run. We saw this with the Rockets, a good young team. Same thing happened in their ball game.
I think the Rockets series is going to tighten up because the Rockets have a good D. And I think that's going to get to be a better series as time goes on. I really do.
I think they have more talent. I think they're deeper. I really do.
Yeah.
But there is the experience that Jeff's kind of has alluded to already. And so it's going to be who might be fresher and faster. Houston, certainly.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because I watched first half of that game, and then it got kind of late. So I didn't tune in for the second half, but I saw the Golden State run, and they started out, I think, with a 5 or 7-0 run. Place is going absolutely berserk.
Yeah,
and I'm sure Steve Kerr. I told them, look, they're probably going to get off to a hot start. Ride it out, and then you'll hit a couple, and everything will settle. And that's exactly what happened. And who's riding it out? Well, you've got guys who, you got Steph Curry with a bunch of rings. You got Jimmy Butler with millions of games of experience and has been to the finals a couple times. And other guys, Draymond Green, who have, guys who aren't going to panic in that situation. So Golden State might be dangerous this year. Houston's an interesting draw for them because it really is a veteran versus youth balance here. That's going to be a nice mix of. And Houston was the number 2 seed, for God's sakes. Here we are talking about teams like Denver and Minnesota, and we're overlooking the number 2 team behind what seems to be the obvious favorite in the West.
Is the Timberwolves, are they going to run the Lakers right out in 4, or is it going to take more than 4?
Great question. I mean, you usually, and everybody's pushing the Lakers and Golden State. If it was up to ESPN, those 2 teams would meet for the Western Conference Championship, Oklahoma City.
Well, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's always going to be a little bit of a romance with LA among people around the country, whether Dave likes them or not. I have a little soft spot in my heart for LA. And I believe it's one of the most startling numbers that I've seen. I'm curious to get your guys' reaction to this because I was looking at, I guess, Nikola Jokic for the 25th time accomplished being the leading scorer, rebounder, and assist man on his team in a postseason game. 25 times he's done it. And he tied some other illustrious basketball player that's been in the playoffs a lot. Now, you have to be in a lot of playoff games to be in a category. You know how far in front the leader is, which happens to be LeBron James? I know he's 40 years old. Obviously, a testament to his talent is that he's been in so many playoff games. He has 75 times where he's led his team in scoring, rebounding, and assists in a postseason game.
Wow.
I mean, if you were going to ever talk to one of these Jordan people and say, okay, I got something for you. How about that? Jordan, I think, is like 3rd or 4th on the list with like 21 or 22 times he did that. But, I mean, imagine 75 times in the postseason, LeBron has led his team in scoring, rebounds, and assists. A pretty amazing qualification for anybody that's trying to make the argument that he was the best of all time. Granted, he's 40, but Dave, you know this from experience. Were you not in that David Posnack Jewish Center League with all of the boys there? David Glaze,
yes, I was.
40 and over. This is where LeBron should be. He should be at some Y playing in a 40 and over league.
Well, what he's done to stay in shape, people are questioning, whether he may have done something that's against the rules. I'm not going to, that's been brought up. I don't know. I don't know how devoted the guy was.
We don't care. Yeah.
Well, most of the time when he makes a record like that, Jeff, is because he's carrying most of the teams that he ever played on, except maybe in Miami, where he had
I'd be
couple of
curious
guys
to see the
around him.
game-by-game breakdown of that. How much of that happened in his 2 stints in Cleveland and then the one here and now that he's
Exactly,
been in LA.
Jeff.
But it's tough,
But
Dave.
it's the amount of games that helps him, but it's still a staggering statistic
It's tough
because
to
the
do.
toughest
Yeah.
one is the assists, I think.
Yeah,
50
yeah.
games.
Dave Lamont, and Jeff
Everybody else.
Deforrest joining us here on Main Street. Gary Allen with you. And we're talking NBA playoffs. We're going to get to the NFL draft in just a little bit, but we're talking NBA. And right now, LeBron James. Oh, yeah. And don't forget, you can catch Main Street on dbtv.tv Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. All the past shows. We're doing well, and I thank all of you out there for taking the opportunity to tune in. We are streaming worldwide, where this show will be on tomorrow night. So we're excited about that. All right, guys. Yeah. Well, hey, listen, we've been
all right, clap.
we've been plugging away for a while.
2 and
All right.
scene.
Are we seeing the last, though, of LeBron? I mean, one more year, maybe?
I don't know. He
Looks
gets
that
hurt
way.
a little bit more frequently, but that's understandable. Or maybe he gets hurt and just takes a couple weeks off and relaxes to get himself ready for the playoffs. That'll be up to him. He's still playing at a very high level, really. I don't think he's the best guy in the league anymore, as he was a few years ago, but he's in the top 10 comfortably. And it's just, I think I'd be weird for him to leave after 1 year of Luka, or not even a year, a half a season of Luka. I think that needs a full year to develop, however this turns out, even if it's successful in the playoffs. You'd like to see that combination get another year together and see what else they can do to build around it. So, I mean, I appreciate his longevity and his ability. I think my only problem is that with the Lakers guys, why I would like is I just think they're deeply overexposed. And even talking about the Lakers makes me feel guilty because it feels like everybody else does it. It's almost required. The story is Shohei Ohtani's wife had a baby. What does LeBron think? It's just stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he gets dragged in it now, not of his own accord, of course, but the media and the lazy producers of these morning shows that just drag these name guys into this stuff that have nothing to do with them in some cases, or pass up on other things that are interesting or that they don't think is interesting to get more about the Yankees or LeBron and things like that. Now, the Yankees have to be off to a very good start, so I could understand talking about them. But this is the stuff that I think why I'm just a little burnt on him is that it's you can't go a day, even in the offseason. LeBron could have played for the Cleveland Browns. Let's spend 4 hours debating it. It's that stuff that I think bothers me.
Yeah, I don't like the small talk, the BS talk. And the small talk stuff doesn't do
It's
much
lazy.
for me.
It's intellectually lazy. And I don't know if it speaks to what they think of their audiences, what they think of themselves, or both.
Let's talk about a team that all three of us are familiar with, the Miami Heat. What's going to happen after this season's over, which I think will be in about 3 to 4 more games?
Seems like they might be snookered a little bit. I don't know what they're going to do. You're hoping for some miracle. Heat fans are holding out the most desperate fibers of hope that Giannis Antetokounmpo somehow ends up in a Heat uniform. It was interesting. I was watching a little dissection, Anatomy of a Loss to Cleveland. And Kenny Atkinson, I guess, listens to some of the things that we say, because we were talking a lot about Tyler Hero. And I thought he had made a concerted effort to become a better defensive player. I could not have been any more wrong, Dave. Because unfortunately, and you know this, and look, Dave and I used to play some hoops together, and I any guy that shoots the ball a lot resents being accused of being a terrible, lousy, lazy defensive player. All right, and I thought Tyler Hero made a pretty good effort to try and distinguish himself a little bit more on the defensive end. But Kenny Atkinson, literally, I was watching. It was like watching Red on Roundball back in the day. That halftime Phil show they had where he would demonstrate the basics and fundamentals of basketball.
Yeah.
And every play they exploited. They worked some kind of way to get somebody that could switch up so they were head-to-head defensively on offense when Cleveland had the ball against Tyler Hero, and they scored like 11, 12 possessions in a row when they got on a run that iced the ball game at the end. And they had been doing it, exploiting the same system the entire game. So it was interesting to see what happened there, because the same could be said. I guess Dallas is trying to maintain and perpetuate the idea that Luka Doncic was in the same category. But where Luka Doncic probably has a big edge offensively overall on Tyler Hero, you can't have a guy score 30 and give up 60 on the defensive end of the court.
But you need the 30. That's the tricky part, Jeff, because you take him out of the game, then your offense sags. So they're in kind of a difficult situation with him. He kind of became their best player this year.
I like him.
I think he's probably the season's MVP. The problem they're having, and Jeff, you touched on it, is they have lost that ability, whether it's the buzz or the finances, to attract that superstar that they really need. If you had a great player built around the other players in here, you'd have a very effective team, because you don't expect superstar numbers out of Adebayo or Hero. And you can let these guys, be themselves more, rather than kind of thrusting them into roles where you must be the man or we won't do anything. And I don't know if they're that good to carry teams.
And
go ahead, Gary, please.
And another selling point for the Miami Heat in the past has always been A, there's no state tax, and B, Miami Beach, man. I mean, South
Not
Florida.
a bad place to be. Would you rather be here or with the Pacers? I mean, let's face it. Who is it?
But
certainly not in Indiana.
But
was it Mo Williams, Dave, years ago? This was a big debate where he ended up signing with Milwaukee instead of Miami, and you thought, who the hell would want to live in Milwaukee over Miami? I mean, you got to be out of your mind. No, I would think this is an attractive place to be.
I think it is, but I just wonder if they've lost their mojo a bit. I really do. They've been hanging around that play-in now for 2 or 3 years. They're not really a 55-win team. They're not. It's just something's missing, and I think a superstar is what's missing. Now, let's face it. Like anybody else, they've had their biggest successes with a superstar, and the whole Jimmy Butler thing was a flipping disaster. So the franchise's reputation and Pat Riley's reputation took a hit this year.
Yeah.
Like it probably never has before since he'd come to Miami. I mean, they've had losses when he coached, and they had that one really bad year. And then he had the whole thing where, he replaced Van Gundy, but what they got out of that was a title. So this, I'm not saying it's in a tenuous position, but it's probably the weakest position they've been in a while. And I don't know what magic at 80 years old Pat Riley is able to conjure up. Plus, I don't have in front of me their financials for the next year or two, what kind of magic they're going to have to pull to open things up for a star player. They've always been good at developing their own. They are very good at that because they are well coached. But I don't know. It's a difficult situation for them to be in. And Pat is not going to do what some teams have done in the NBA, like Detroit did, and like Washington's doing, and Utah is doing. Okay, boys, you know what? We got to do this all over again. Sorry, we're going to suck you for years.
Right.
But like Oklahoma City, it might just work out. So he will not do that. So you really have an interesting situation as to the future of this team. I can't predict it. I agree with you. If it's Indiana or Mo, yes, I understand. But if Indiana's going to offer me a better chance of winning a championship, Indianapolis isn't that bad of a city.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not.
What are you kidding me, Dave? I got to challenge you on that one. I'm sorry, Gary. Indianapolis is a dump. I mean,
no, I couldn't disagree more.
Betty Davis, what a dump.
It's a nice city, Jeff. It really is.
A dump. The second biggest attraction there in terms of culinary world is White Castle. What are you talking about?
No, you have not been. No,
I haven't been up there in a while.
Trust me, I would disagree 1,000%.
I'm not saying it's better than Miami. It's obviously very different than Miami.
It's not even close.
Indianapolis is. That's why they keep having things like they had a Super Bowl there. That's why they brought the Olympic trials there. That's why they had the NBA All-Star game there. All the events that aren't coming here, by the way, because they also have a downtown that's properly set up for hosting events, which cannot be said for Miami.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So and an airport, by the way, which shames anything that's in this area.
Oh, yes. Give me a free home in Indianapolis. And Gary, I mean, this is relatable to anybody that's falling into the so-called senior citizen category. And I still wouldn't move there. Are you kidding me?
That's fine. I understand.
No, that's okay.
I'm just trying to tell you that characterizing it as a dump is way off.
No, Indianapolis is nice. I did about 5 or 6 years ago.
The last time you were there, he said blood.
I was only there a couple of times. And
last time.
Here's one of the things.
Give me a deck. Give me a century last time you were there.
Was the last time they had a Super Bowl there, which I thought was a giant mistake. And
brand new stadium.
it was my problem, Dave, and maybe it stems from a personal thing. Okay, so
well, there we go.
this isn't the best perspective. I'm going in the what is it? St. Elmo's, the fire there.
Yeah,
the big restaurant. It's the only restaurant anybody ever mentions. There's no second place to go. And so I'm about to sit down with the guy who was producing shows with me. We had a long day there on Radio Row. We were interviewing 100 guys, and we're told, okay, it'll be like 15 minutes. We'll get you a table.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing we see, the guy, he comes out and he says, listen, I don't know if I'm going to be able to seat you tonight. And whose name did they call for the table that we were supposed to get? Jim Bleepin' Gray. And that was enough to taint me forever against the city.
So that's irrational. Why don't you take it out on Jim Gray?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't Jim Gray's fault. It was the fact that the city has no class. I mean, there's no reason to ever go back there for me, and I will always have a negative feeling about it. We ended up eating at White Castle that night, and
that's your mistake without doing any kind of research to get off your butt and find another place to eat downtown.
When I was up there doing the Big Ten game between who was it, Ohio State and Michigan State? No, it was the Big Ten game was the championship between Michigan State and Ohio State. We went to St. Elmo's Fire and everything was fine. We got in.
It's not St. Elmo's Fire, by the way.
You weren't there. Yeah, I mean, you weren't there when Jim Gray was in line. Jim Gray.
No.
This is all right. Let's get out of the ditch, boys.
All right, listen. Let's change course here.
Well, wait a minute. I want to know what impressed you, though, Dave LaMont, about
I just explained it. I just explained it. It's a very well thought out city. It's clean. It has a world-class airport, way better than almost any airport I've been to, and I think I know my way around a few airports. I find it, very easy to navigate, and okay, the roads could be better. I'll give you that. And just around the whole thing, Indiana, the roads are terrible. But no, I never mind anything. I've had a couple of PBA events just outside the city. Where I have to obviously go into the city. But no, I never mind going there at all. I find it to be a much nicer city than people give it credit for. Plus, we stayed there with my family. My father-in-law worked there for a few months and had a blast there. Took kids. We took my son when he was young to where the Pacers, they had a gym that had the Pacers' old basketball floor. And I don't know. By the way, you know what they had there also? They had, when I was there 2 months ago, they had a massive WWE show downtown.
There you go.
So they have the ability, and my wife was at the Olympic trials, and she said that she had a blast. She loved the city.
Combine
the way it's laid out.
The combine is their big thing, or was their big thing.
Speaking of which, let's switch on over to the NFL, shall we? Before we
since you mentioned the combine, let's do it.
Yeah. My pet peeve, and I saw it today on ESPN when I was trolling around, are the prognosticators who say, and I go back to an old film of Lee Corso, the year that Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning were in their last year in college football. Lee Corso predicts that Ryan Leaf will be 10 times the quarterback of Peyton Manning this year and in the pros. And which brings up my number one pet peeve. What the hell do these guys really know about the picks? What?
Corso coached and played football.
I know.
Well, then he knows something about football. You can be wrong.
One
of us is going to say someone in this threesome is going to say something today that in a week or 2 weeks is going to prove to be wrong.
No, I mean, what I'm saying is, generally speaking, not Lee so much, because Lee, they brought out the tape later. They showed it a little bit later on the next second after Manning's first year with the Colts. And Lee goes, well, I guess I was wrong about that one.
And he was willing to eat it because that's part of the job.
Exactly. But I'm talking about other prognosticators, local guys, other guys. Oh, he's a can't miss. Oh, this guy's got everything he takes. I compare him to Johnny Unitas, or I compare him to Dan Marino, or I compare this one to this one. Oh, he can't miss. He's going to be a great defensive tackle. He's going to be a great edge rusher. He's going to be this. You don't know, in spite of all the interviews, in spite of all the films you watched, in spite of all the people you've talked to about so-and-so. It comes down to character. And did we ask the right questions? And when he shows up in camp, does he still have any kind of incentive to really do something with himself? Because let's face it, how many guys are drafted, 257, I think, every year? And then there's some free agents that come along away. And how many of them are there 3 or 4 years later?
Okay. Jeff, why don't you start? Because I have lots
Oh,
of
many
thoughts
thoughts.
about this.
I mean, the Ryan Leaf thing, I remember this. You were, I think, involved in local talk radio at the time.
Yeah, I think I was.
It was a hot topic whether Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning should be the guy. And people started to convince themselves it wasn't just, Lee Corso, where many people started to say, hey, wait a minute, man. Look at this Peyton Manning. He can't beat the Gators. And,
He
he's
is the
choked in
two-time
certain
MVP.
spots.
Of the
And
Super
Ryan
Bowl.
Leaf looks like the prototype guy, 6'5", strapping guy, chucks the rock down the field. People didn't anticipate that was going to be that much of a disaster, but it was hotly debated right up until the time.
Every year, that number one pick is debated. But here's
Yeah.
the problem, Gary. You want to put everybody like us out of business.
No.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know that
Yeah.
people anticipated being that dead wrong about Ryan Leaf. And then Ryan Leaf turned into a real interesting story because, I mean, for a guy that was essentially the punchline of every draft day joke for years, and then he
Or
bombed.
Ryan Schleister.
Art
Schleister.
Schleister, yeah, he
Art
ended up. He
By
ends
the way,
up in
both
prison.
guys who had addiction issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
But Leaf came around. I remember it was a radio row in, I believe, Houston. They were having the Super Bowl. Was it Houston, Texas? Might have been. Anyway, I remember interviewing him after we hadn't seen him. He hadn't surfaced for some time. And I was really struck by this, Dave. You do a million interviews, especially radio rows, Super Bowls. I mean, they can tend to be pretty on periphery and superficial. But this guy was great. I mean, very sincere, spoke very honestly about all of his problems. And since has become sort of a motivational guy and actually
He's bounced around a little bit, Jeff. I don't know if you've seen lately. He's had a couple of issues, but he always owns it.
I mean, I really appreciated his forthrightness about the things he experienced.
The reason I bring all this up is I love Cam. I hope he has a successful career in Tennessee. I think Tennessee is suited for him in a sense in comparison to Cleveland or the Giants. If you're the Giants, you don't really need to take a quarterback. You really don't. Cleveland, they need to take everything that's in front of them.
You don't need a quarterback if you're the Giants?
Well, didn't they sign Russell?
Sign Russell Wilson.
Like I
didn't sign Russell.
You don't really need a quarterback.
It's a one-year stopgap. I think the people that are interested in the Giants are thinking they're going to draft a quarterback.
Actually,
they need a quarterback.
They need a lot.
Dave, they need a quarterback, but they don't need to take Cam necessarily.
No, I agree with that. That would be dumb. But anyway, I interrupt you. Go ahead and finish your thought there.
No, I mean, and Sonora Sanders. Some people say he's better than Cam. He's better than this. He's better than that. How do we know what they're going to be like as a pro?
Can I offer you? Guess what? The teams don't either. Because if they were right every damn time, all 12, 13, 8, whatever, back when I used to draft 17 guys, they'd make the team the first year.
And they don't.
Right, because they make mistakes too. All we do is take the noise and try to generate some activity for a variety of reasons. Number one, for ourselves, so people will talk about what we're talking about. That's the job. Number two, for the organization we work for. So somebody says, hey, you know what? Those 3 guys on DBTV are pretty well educated. They're not always right, but I look to those guys because I think they know what they're talking about. So you put in the research, you put in the time. So I understand why those guys do that. And the other thing is, if you just stand there and blandly do nothing, no one's going to pay attention to you, and you won't keep that job that you have. So you've got to go out and make these bold statements to keep your job. And if you're wrong, you eat it. And if you're right, then you have your little victory lap and you go on to your next prediction. That's how the game's played, and we all know that. That's why when we talked just for a second, I said, let's wait on this one because I have a lot to think about. You have to do that. It's my analogy. I use this analogy a lot, is to pro wrestling. A long time ago, 70s and a little bit into the 80s, I had a friend of mine who was involved in it, on the periphery. So I would go to matches in different arenas in South Florida, like Miami Beach Convention Center, things like that.
Right.
And it's the same even now. If that wrestler, and especially a main event guy, walks out and not everybody in that crowd of 20,000 people if you don't have an opinion of that guy, he's failed. Either you want to hate him, you want to root for him, or in some cases, the really good ones, both, then they've done their job. They've gotten a reaction. That's what you want. Anything that happens after that, and it's the same thing with the media types, guys. They want the reaction. I would bet that if you actually sat down, and I've never done this, Stephen A. Smith over turkey sandwich. Is he going to yell the whole time during lunch? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think, some guys are. Now, there are other guys who are there, like Dick Vitale. That's really Dick Vitale. There's not a phony bone in that guy's body.
Mhm.
Same with Corso. Those guys are kind of like that. They love the attention. So when you see Vitale do his thing, he's not acting at all. But other guys, yeah, they turn it on, they turn it off. You have, how many people do we know in this business who have different names from what their driver's license or their check says? 1 million.
Yeah.
So I just think, Gary, your point isn't completely full of it because, yeah, we'll make mistakes, but so do the NFL teams. The Oakland Raiders drafted Jamarcus Russell first. He might have been the worst of them all.
Can you think back? I mean, that was one of my points that I was going to make later on is that, in spite of all the interviews, in spite of all the film study, in spite of all the background checks, in spite of interviewing mom and dad and cousins and high school teachers and coaches and stuff like that, how many of these guys fall through the cracks that were supposed to be can't miss guys, according to Mel Kiper?
Well, it's not Mel Kiper's fault.
No.
He took everything he has at his disposal and took, okay, this is what I got to do. That's what I got to say. I like this guy, I know this team. This is what they need. They said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say this and we'll go with it. He has put the time in. He has looked at the film. He has done all that. And if he's wrong, well, that's his butt. He looks like a fool. He looks like a fool. He has accepted that.
Now, getting back to my original thought, Cam Ward, Tennessee Titans. Do we agree, all three of us, that's a done deal?
It appears that way.
I hope so.
Yeah, you would think. I like Cam Ward. I mean, he has got a great arm. I'm not sure. I mean, the knock on him would be maybe he holds on to the ball too long. He also has that quality where he's a bit of an ad-libber, and you need some of that if you're going to be a successful NFL quarterback, or so it seems today. And then beyond that, well, we don't know. But I was watching the 30 for 30 on the 83 NFL draft the other night. It just happened to pop up again.
Oh, is that caught in the draft?
Yeah.
NFL Network
is kind of the featured central figure there, and he was representing both John Elway, who obviously pulled the move, and then Dan Marino, who dropped like a rock all the way down to the Miami Dolphins, I believe, at number 27, something like that.
Yeah,
in the draft. So, and the greatest part of it was the stunned look on the face, as always is my favorite thing of any draft, the stunned look on the face of Jet fans. And even Pete Rozelle, who was not known. I mean, Pete was pretty low key, was he not? And he gets the pick. They handed it to him on a piece of paper. He gets the pick from the Jets, whatever it was, number 12 or 13. And a smile comes across his face like he can't believe it. He's in stunned disbelief. And then he makes the announcement. It's all he could do to contain and suppress his laughter that the Jets have taken Ken O'Brien, who wasn't the worst quarterback ever drafted by any means in the first
Actually, he was pretty adequate.
But
if you ask the Dolphins, he was more than adequate.
But he wasn't Dan Marino.
But he kicked their butt several times. And actually, you know what? That was a 30 for 30. I'm thinking there's a show, and I tape it every year because actually my face appears in one of the shows in an NFL Network called Caught in the Draft. It was produced by NFL Films. Yeah. It was the year, Jeff, remember when Kozar came out, and he graduated early with 2 degrees. And they did a press conference down at the U. I'm sure you were there. I was.
I saw it. I saw it the other day.
I had a full beard and glasses, and they cut to that. They cut to just me, and somehow that made the show to show the young reporter sitting there paying attention. So that based on the beard that would have whatever year that was, 83, 82?
Something like that.
I mean, what?
83, because Kelly was gone. Bernie was
they won a championship in 83, which now
with him.
But it was the 84 Orange Bowl game.
Right. So it was that year, that draft year, and then he ends up going in the supplemental, I think, to the Browns, which was the team he wanted to be with, and we know the rest. So that's that. I know the one you're talking about. That one you're talking about is really good. The 30.
But here's the one thing what Jeff brought up: the 83 draft where Marino drops all the way to the Miami Dolphins. There was what's his name at ESPN on the desk.
Todd Blackledge was taken before Marino. Tony.
No, but do you remember? Do you remember the guy, Dr. somebody or another, who was an analyst for ESPN?
Paul Zimmerman, Dr. Z.
Dr. Z. And he goes, I don't know who's going to teach him down there. What is Don Shula going to teach Dan Marino about being a quarterback? Gee, I don't know. He only coached Johnny Unitas, Earl Morrall, and a few others. He's been around a while.
Didn't Unitas once said if Don Shula was on fire, he wouldn't pee on him to put him out?
No,
Or was it the other way around?
And my brother didn't care for him much either. And they did one over the weekend on the draft that my brother was in. However, they never got to Mike because he was a running back out of Duke, and the Colts picked way down. But they talked mostly about Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers that
was
year.
65. Yeah, I have that one queued up next. Actually, I just watched the 64 one, but it is a guessing game for even the people who put in the 50-hour days.
Yeah,
and they'll nail a bunch, and they'll get a 6th-round pick. They're going to get a Brady every once in a while who's deep in the draft. You're going to get a guy like Julian Edelman, I think, another Patriots guy. So it does. You get the late successes, and you get the people who fail at the top who get the most attention because no one's going to give a crap if your 7th-round pick gets cut after 3 exhibition games because he was a 7th-round pick and wasn't going to make it anyway. But they're going to care a lot about that number 1 guy, and if he fails or if he underperforms or ends up, getting dumped and signing and then taking off with another team. All of those things happen.
Dave LaMont and Jeff Deforrest are joining us here on Main Street. Gary Allen with you. We're talking a little NFL draft. Travis Hunter has made a statement that if he can't play both ways, he's not going to play football. Talk about making a soundbite.
What's he going to do?
I don't know. I think that's just
going to go to. I don't know. He probably made enough money in college to probably live the rest of his life pretty comfortably.
If he spends it wisely.
The Giants are looking at him. The Giants are looking at him heavily.
I mean, he's a spectacular player. Whether that translates to the NFL is the thing we don't know. But I don't know. If I drafted him, I wouldn't take him without talking to the head coach. Well, you're supposed to anyway. But you'd say, okay, he's going to be a 1st-round pick. We got 15 minutes here. What do you want to do? And just see what head coach is willing to take that opportunity to see if they'll do it. Almost no one's ever done it in the modern era of the NFL. Dion did it a little bit because but they're talking about a unique athlete. Maybe this guy thinks, hey, this guy was my coach. I liked him. I want to be the next Dion. Maybe he could be. I don't know if he can sustain it. And if one, what happens if you're mediocre at one of them? Does a coach make the decision? Hey, look, you're one hell of a defensive back, but I got receivers. I'm okay there. I'm going to keep your defense. Then what happens? Does he go demand a trade? I mean, you're setting yourself up for some heartburn here if you take him. On the other hand, if it works out, you're a genius.
I think you're getting a pretty amazing guy either way. And there's probably a way to appease him in terms of whether he plays primarily at wide receiver and comes in sometimes as a D-back or the other way around, where Dion wasn't out on the field all the time as a wide receiver, even though he was impactful in the offense when he was on the field because of his speed. This guy is spectacular, though. He's not an ordinary wide receiver where he just can run fly patterns like he's Bullet Bob Hayes. I mean, he makes spectacular catches in traffic and wrestles the ball away from people. I would try to figure out a way to maybe use him at both. Well, why not? I mean, why not be innovative with him?
They might try it at first and see how long his physicality lasts before he gets tired. I mean, the NFL and college football are 2 different worlds, as we all know.
Yeah, I mean, the pace of the game's faster. The hits are harder. You're constantly going against competition that's more equivalent with your abilities than you would be if you were at Colorado and you get a couple of cupcakes out there. But I'd be interested. I mean, from a fan standpoint or even a media observer, whatever, you want to see if the guy can pull it off. I mean, it's the same thing like watching. I can't wait to see Shohei Ohtani go back on the mound.
Yep.
Because it's such an oddball thing to be able to do.
And to do as well as he does it. So, I think, I 100% agree with Jeff. I'd be willing to see my team take a run at him. As I said, I think he'll go early, and let's try it out. If it's a humbling mistake, we'll all find out. And again, it kind of goes back to what I said. We were talking about all the guys making predictions. Hey, if he eats it, he eats it. He has to live with that. But if he's willing to try it and willing to put himself out there and gamble, and I think a couple of us in this chat room know about gambling and the good and the bad of it. Then,
no matter what the outcome, though, I mean, if it doesn't work that he plays both ways and he's effective both ways, he can always go back to doing one or the other.
Yeah.
So
sometimes it might happen that way.
Let's talk a little bit about Mr. Sanders, if we could, please.
I love his chicken's okay.
No, not Carlo, not this Colonel. No.
I
Colonel
remember,
Sanders.
Jeff, of course you remember Carlos Sanders. I think he was a 10th round
Carlos
pick with the
Sanders.
Dolphins.
Was he a guitar player? I mean,
Thank you guys very much.
69 Dolphins, Carlos Sanders didn't work out. Small school defensive
Manny
end.
Fernandez took a
Couldn't-
spot on the line.
couldn't
It was
do it.
horrible.
Yeah.
Sonora Sanders. What?
Shadur Sanders.
Sonora Sanders.
Unless
I'm sorry.
Sonora Sanders is some kind of place in Arizona in the desert, I'm not familiar with. That's the donut.
He's a sixth. He's rated sixth by Mel. And Mel.
I'm a
thinks
big
he's
Mark
gonna-
Kuiper fan, by the way. I know. I loved what this guy did.
My brother could not
He
stomach him.
created the whole esteem about the draft. Without Mel
I know,
Kiper,
but
no one cares
but
about
my
him.
brother would run into him all the time in Baltimore, and I said to Mike one day, I said, "So what do you think of him?" He said, "He's a greaseball. He's
All right, so
he
maybe
does-
he's a jerk personally, but I enjoy what he does.
his daughters are cute. His daughters are real cute. I met.
I
one of
liked
his
it with
daughters
Sean
once.
McVay. I mean, not Sean McVay. What was it?
Todd McShay.
Hey, Todd McShay.
Todd McShay.
Coach.
You might like Sean McVay too. if
Yeah,
you
no,
met
Sean
him.
McVay would be great on the draft also. But
Yes, he would actually.
I don't
Yeah.
know why they ever dumped him.
I'm a big Kuiper fan. I really believe that he created this whole industry of
Yeah.
being interested.
Oh,
in the draft.
100%.
Oh, he did. Absolutely, he did. Before then, it was closed doors, smoked room. We didn't even know my brother was drafted until like 3 days after the draft.
It was
when
in
he
the
got
agatype, under the British soccer scores. So
And there were no
But anyway,
rules,
getting
by
back
the
to
way.
getting back to Sanders, if we could.
Yeah, as
do
probably
you
the
think he's
second
gonna
best
fall?
quarterback.
Kuiper thinks he's going to maybe fall to 21 to the Steelers.
could happen. I don't know.
Well,
With the
you know-
desperation and need a quarterback, you'd have to think somebody takes him before that. I don't know if he's, distinctively the number 2 guy in there because it seems like the opinions have changed. I like him, man. The kid's tough. I'm not sure what he can do, but he showed me a lot when he was playing for Colorado, even in spite of the fact that most of the attention and the focus was on Dion, his father. But I don't think the guy's incapable of being a decent pro quarterback. I don't know, Dave. What do you think?
I think he'll be okay. Now I'm looking. I just grabbed at random while you were talking. I just typed in mock draft, and I found up with one on NFL.com that has
Mhm.
him going 9th to New Orleans. And New Orleans has a bad quarterback situation because Carr
Yes.
is banged up. They're in cap hell. So there's not going to be a lot of pressure on him to win right away because I don't think they're going to win right away. And you look at the other teams that are ahead of him. We've talked about Tennessee. Cleveland has the second pick, and their quarterback situation is dire.
Yes.
The Giants, then New England, they're okay. Quarterback Jacksonville is going to give Lawrence another chance. The Raiders might need some help. They need a lot of help. The Jets, we'll see. Carolina, I think they're okay. Then you have the Saints. The Bears have already made their investment. The Niners are okay. Dallas, they need other things. So the Dolphins aren't going to do anything at 13. So, 21st pick, guys, belongs to Pittsburgh. They have him down for the kid from Ole Miss, Jackson Dart. I would be a little surprised if Sanders fell that far. I think the New Orleans pick is actually pretty intelligent because of how things are pretty rough there right now. It'd be very hard to be a Saints fan right now.
The good thing.
I mean, it definitely.
You know,
and it's not as punitive making a mistake at quarterback in the first round as it used to be.
And here's the thing, too. A lot of quarterbacks have fallen, like Aaron Rodgers and others over the years. But when they fell to a team that in the long run benefited them better than if they had been the first or second pick in the NFL draft. Because let's keep reminding the viewers and ourselves, the guys that are picking in the top 5 or 6, they're not very good football teams to begin with. They got a lot of problems, management issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe they had a bad year and this was it, and now they're picking in the top 10. But the bottom line is those teams generally are always picking in the top 10. When was the last time Cleveland didn't pick in the top 10? The top 3?
I would have to go look. At Tennessee situation is interesting because they got the guy they wanted to coach.
Yeah.
Or New England did. I'm sorry. So they're sitting at 4. That team might have a couple of little bit of bolts of momentum. Tennessee, not quite so much. They went the other way. They fired the guy that New England took. A lot of people question that decision. And what happens? They stunk. So they have literally nowhere to go but up. And we saw Carolina start to get feisty with Bryce Young after giving him a little bit more time. The other thing that's happening now, guys, is that I don't think you have much time anymore, and it's difficult for a franchise to preach patience if your top quarterback struggles, if your top quarterback has a hard time in the very beginning. Jaden Daniels didn't start performing great until about the 7th or 8th week of the season. Then he really got on a roll and almost got them into the Super Bowl, and they just lost to a better team.
Dave, I think my Colts have made a major Bozo the Clown move with Richardson. I still don't think that guy's ever going to produce.
Well, and then that gets into the argument about when do you admit that you might have made a mistake. And to your scouting point also, Gary, because what you were looking at with Richardson at Florida, why would anybody assume that it was magically going to correct itself in the pros, where this guy's biggest problem was inaccuracy?
Yeah.
He had a tendency to throw passes that looked like the ball had a gyroscope in it, and a lot of picks. And but he wasn't an accurate passer. And in the pros, what's been his biggest nemesis is the fact that he's an inaccurate passer. So,
and they've got good receivers, they've got good people,
good kid too. I mean, he has his head on straight. It's not like this guy, some a guy that's out there in space somewhere. Very focused and grounded individual, very respectable guy. But if you have a scatter arm, I mean, all of a sudden you're not going to have pinpoint control just because you became a pro. And they thought maybe they could correct that. And then how long do you live with that mistake before you admit that?
Hey, we got about 3 minutes left. Oh, actually, we don't. We only have about a minute and a half left. Any predictions from you guys on any sleeper players that you think will surprise people?
Oh, sleepers! Wow, that's.
I got one.
Right,
I got one too. I have a good one.
Go for
Every
it.
Draft.
Xavier Estrepo. I think he's going to end up being a long-time player in the NFL. He may not ever be a superstar, but I think he's got the intangibles and everything going for them that I think he's going to be a gold mine for a team as a receiver, a slot receiver. I think there's plenty of room for that, and every team has one.
I like Restrepo. I would imagine being a UM guy, you do too, Dave LaMont. We saw a lot of
Yeah, he'll be solid. He won't be. I don't think he'll be unless he turns into Julian Edelman and becomes.
He has that possibility.
Successful player. That would be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, I really Brett Biletnikoff. This guy's going to be great. John Blutarski is always my. Whenever I put up a mock draft, I would mention John Blutarski. Favorite college, academic issues, but physicality is there. Just maybe needs to get focused and stay in shape. And people would call in, even draft experts would sometimes say, "Hey, wait a minute, you know what? You might be onto something there." So, shows you how credible some of these guys are, as you were talking about. But
I wouldn't call him a sleeper, but I really love Abdul Carter from Penn State, who's going to be the top 4 pick.
A great edge rusher.
He could be an immediate hit, whoever takes him.
Exactly. Dave LaMont, Jeff Deforrest. Jeff is going to be back with me next month. Dave won't be back with us until June.
Where's Dave going? What is he going?
I got
Dave's got some PBA stuff going on, and then
he's going over there to the wall.
And then we're going to do a PBA show with Dave and Jeff, and he's going to bring some guests on.
Got to bring Marshall Holman on just for me.
As far as I'm concerned, my number 1 draft pick is between Dave LaMont and Jeff Deforrest. I love you both very much. Stay right there. Let me sign off, and I'll be with you in just about 30 seconds. I just want to thank everybody for joining us here this time on Main Street. We're talking NFL draft. We're talking NBA. Don't forget, you can see the show on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on dbtv.tv. Until next time, we got, matter of fact, from DBTV next week, we got David Bruner joining us, the man who started the whole thing. So would you please take care of yourselves, take care of your family. God bless you, and take care.